So, hi everyone. Welcome to this week's American Mussar community gathering. We've had a little bit of a delay here because the Zoom link expired, but now the new link is out. We are all here. And now we will begin, as we always do, with a short meditation. So please relax and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth.
Recording in progress.
And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding, if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car pass by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judging, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Mm. Well, as I said to some of you before we started recording, this week's humility lesson begins with a dose of humility for me. These things happen. The link expired, I guess, over the summer, or I don't know why it worked last week, but whatever the case, we have a new recurring Zoom meeting, so we will all be here. And we kind of had our little pre-cycle discussion last week of Hitlam Dut. And this week we're going to start exploring humility. So I'm going to share the slides. And before we jump into humility, I want to do a little review of Mussar. For those of you who are newer to the practice, this might be a first time. For those of you who've been doing the practice for a while, it is always helpful to have a review. So may I have a volunteer to unmute and read these first 5 bullets, please? Yes, Bonnie.
I will. Thank you. Musar is experiential learning of Torah, a Jewish mindfulness practice of becoming a mensch, a Jewish spiritual practice of emulating the divine and becoming holy, a way to identify and heal those parts of your soul that cause us to get stuck, a way to shorten the distance from the heart to the head.
Thank you, Bonnie. So I'd like to, we always begin with like a general open question for discussion. So this is going to be our one for today. So I'm wondering, is there a definition that particularly resonates with you or raises a question? So I can't see all of you, so it's probably easiest if you hit the raise your hand button, but if not, I'm sure I will catch up with you eventually. Yes, Enid. So if you could remember to unmute, please.
Okay. Oh, there's an echo here. All right. This isn't,
Like,
wait a
looks
minute.
like you're on a phone and on a
Well,
computer.
yeah, because, all right, I shut my phone. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that happened. It's not exactly an answer, but it's in the neighborhood. Okay.
Okay.
So I belong to North Shore Congregation Israel in Glencoe, Illinois, and Wendy Giffen is the senior rabbi there. And several years ago, she used to do mindfulness classes. And one day she set up 3 chairs and we studied humility. And the middle chair was taking up just the right amount of space. And the chair on one side, let's call it the left, it doesn't matter, was taking up too little space. And and the chair on the right, I lost you. Hold on.
We can still hear you.
Oh, well, now I'm gone.
We can hear you.
All right. The chair on the right was taking up too much space. And that that visual image never left me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a great, um, particularly relevant example for humility. But humility is really foundational and fundamental to Musar. So thank you for sharing that. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, but we can take this a little bit deeper. Maybe we have another volunteer to read a couple of selections from Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda about, which I call Why We Need Musar.
Is anybody going to read?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Reason tells us that a human being is subject to diverse natural forces, is composed of divergent elements, possesses conflicting traits of character, and must adapt to changing circumstances. Accordingly, their deeds are also diverse. They include the noble and the reprehensible, the corrupt and the just, the good and the evil. There are people who are drawn to Torah study only to be considered scholars by common people and thought of as great humans. They veer off the path of the Torah to that which brings no excellence of character and does not correct personal faults.
Thank you, Carolyn. So what are some of so first of all, let me ask, does this sort of seem reasonable to you? Does this kind of seem like an accurate description of the human condition? Maybe some ways yes, some ways no. What do you think? What is his main argument?
What? What?
Bonnie.
So this is the same rabbi who's writing two, to me, very different things um, about their deeds are also diverse. They include noble and the reprehensible. I'm not sure how that becomes a deed. I guess it is a deed. I just put an adjective in front of it. The corrupt and the just and the good and evil. I think this is his explanation as why we need Musar. Why doing this is what people do. They come to Torah study so that people say to them, "You're so brilliant," and they need that kind of reinforcement, but it doesn't bring excellence of character.
Mhm.
Um, I see these as so negative. I don't think about people in this way, quite frankly, except some politicians. Um,
So you don't think people are capable of both noble and, I mean, they're giving, extremes,
yes,
but
that's what bothers me.
mhm,
I don't think we live in extremes. I think we live in gray areas. And this says no, it's black and white. And you live here and you live here. I'm
yes, you're
comfortable.
you're bothered by the
I'm
black
very,
and whiteness of this.
yes, I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Mhm. Yeah, Enid, and then Michael.
Oh, I am unmuted. Okay. I
Yeah.
think it's all of it. And I think of the word shalom and the root of shalom, to the best of my limited Hebrew knowledge, has to do with all of it. And I think that we are encompass all of it, including those that we may view as the scholars. And I think that there could be an inference of action that we are all of it. We recognize that we're all of it. And why do we need Musar? Like, I forgot her name, Carolyn. I don't know. Oh, Bonnie said, we need action.
Mhm,
But we're human beings and we just finished with this Yom Kippur and all this stuff. We all do all this stuff.
mhm.
And I think I just have gone through something with a friend myself, and I was all over the place. And I don't think that's unusual. My heart was breaking and I was furious and I was insulted and on and on and on. And I sometimes think when I grasp on to a particular saying, um, in Judaism, it helps to give me a direction. So if you grasp on to a particular midot, it can help to give you the direction to go forward with an action. Otherwise, it's like la la land.
Thank you, Enid. That was well said. And I think what you're referring to about shalom is if you change the vowels, it's shalem, which means wholeness. And so, one interpretation of shalom as hello, goodbye, or peace is being at peace with the wholeness. Or I don't know who coined this phrase, but it kind of came to mind, the whole human catastrophe. We're all, it's all kind of in there.
Whole human catastrophe. There's also something that I don't want to dominate this program, but I have to share this. And I'm very poor at Hebrew because I grew up classical reform in the 40s and it was foreboding. But anyway, if you take, and you'll help me, Rabbi Greg, if you take the first letter of in Hebrew of shalom, what makes it fire or water? I don't remember. And the last letter, and you join them together, you get wholeness.
That sounds like a very similar, I don't know that particular variant, but that's the same idea. Um, let's hear from Michael. I'm
Two,
going to turn off the share for the
Yeah.
moment.
yeah, two quick thoughts. One, with that regards to that first quote and what Bonnie was saying, I'm not sure I read it quite the same way because he says they include, these behaviors include, but I don't think he means that to be an exhaustive list. So I think there's room for that gray in there. That would include everything, but if he started to try to enumerate all the ways in which we would describe human behavior, he'd never stop writing. So he's doing that as sort of a shorthand, or at least that's how I'm reading it. But more interesting to me is this second quote, which seems to me to be driving at the ego as opposed to the soul. And if I could tie it back to one of those quotes that we started with, the quote about Musar being a way to identify and heal those parts of the soul that help us, that cause us to get stuck. It seems to me like what he's making a case for here maybe is you don't want to be doing things if people are only doing things because their own ego is driving them, that's not going to be nearly as helpful to them or maybe to everybody else as if they're being driven by what their soul needs.
Hmm.
So maybe that's the way I would read it anyway.
Thank you, Michael. Let's see. So it's either Frank or Linda, and then Peter, did I see your hand as well?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go with Frank
Uh,
the
it
first.
it reminds me a little bit about people when we and then when we realize that all people harbor let's see, good people, fools and rascals.
Hmm.
And but I could take that to myself. I have all of those traits. Uh, and it's really easy to slip sometimes from one to the other. Uh, and just the other day, I was having a conversation that I realized I needed to leave because it was getting me upset in synagogue because I see things very differently.
Hmm.
And where people who were saying certain things about some people, it almost like saying that that's how they were.
Hmm.
But I feel that just like we hear those statements about people, I think that's the way it reflects who we are individually.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Peter.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the same line. I see the paragraph as talking about two extremes, but really their potential. It's not that you have to be evil, that you are evil, but there is the potential for that trait, or the other side. It's like saying with humility that you can have too much humility, you can have too little humility. There's always that potential of bad and good.
Thank you, Peter. That's a really good segue. Your comment to Michael's comments are good segues to the next slide that we are going to take a look at. I don't think we've seen this one in a couple of years. This is a picture that someone in my very first Mussar class, when we were talking about the good inclination and the evil inclination, and we could sort of choose between which one we're going to follow, he found this picture and brought it in. And so the idea is that we have choice points and that, sometimes maybe we're all doing the right thing, we stop at the stop sign. It's not even something we're conscious of. Um, or, we roll through the stop sign and it's just something we do and it's not something that we're conscious of. But there are points where we're right in the middle and we're just on this boundary and it's muddy and it kind of flows back and forth. And the idea is when we pick something to the side of good, we sort of push this muddy water back a little bit. And if we pick something that's not so good, it allows the muddy water to kind of creep over onto this other side. And one of the definitions talked about mindfulness, and Michael talked about just being driven by the ego. And it's Mussar offers us this ability to step back and to slow things down and to realize where we have choice and agency. My favorite line in the Torah is from Moses, who says this a couple different ways, but I'm setting before you today a blessing and a curse. And choose the blessing that you may live. But we get to make choices along the way. And that's also the essence of a Mussar practice, is being able to make choices as we go along. I'll stop the share and see if anyone has any comments or questions about this. Catherine, you look quite intrigued by this idea. Okay, so to go a little bit further in, this is when I talk about, oops, I see Enid. Enid, if you want to unmute.
Yeah, okay. So, on this issue of a blessing and a curse, I ended up for Slicko writing a story, a personal story, and the title of the story in the celebration at the synagogue, and the title of the story was it a blessing or a curse or both?
Hmm.
And what I learned from it is that somebody was talking about things being black or white or shades of gray, or even the picture you showed with the
Mhm.
mixture of mud and clear water. I was reporting an experience in my life that could have been defined as a curse, but because I was called upon to take action, I learned something about myself that was a blessing. But then on the other hand, it wasn't fun. I mean, that was fun, but the original situation was not fun.
Mhm.
So is it a blessing or is it a curse or is it both? And then it goes back to this word shalom, or is it all of it?
Mm. Yeah,
So,
that's a really important piece of this practice as well. And part of it is the blessing and the curse is exactly the same thing. It's not like two things are put in front of you, it's one thing is put in front of you. Which is it? Is it a blessing or a curse? And as you say, sometimes it's both.
and sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes what you think is a blessing turns out to be a curse, and what you think is a curse is the best thing that ever happened. I mean, in all due respect, that people that suffer plenty of traumas, myself included, I don't want to negate or put that down.
Sure.
But at the same time, even those things in my life created who I am, which I consider a blessing.
Hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so given sort of all of this background, these ruminations and meditations on human nature and our ability to make choices, how do we approach this as a practice? So, a Musar practice, it's something we do in cycles. We would study a particular soul trait for some period of time. Usually it's 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it might be a month. And then there's a recitation phrase or a mantra to frame the day, like the one from Alan Moranis that I shared, no more than my place, not less than my space. That's a mantra for humility. Then, and this is the most important part, is we try to act. We sort of figure out where am I out of balance and what's one small thing that I can do to move towards balance. For example, if I'm working on humility and I'm always afraid to ask a question, maybe I'm not taking up enough space. And so my action is I'm going to ask a question. Maybe it's not going to be in front of everybody. Maybe it's going to be by email or one-on-one later, but I'm going to do something out of my comfort zone. And it's that acting out of the comfort zone which brings about change. Now, we know this from neurobiology. When we start acting differently, we cause our brain to rewire. And as they say, neurons that act, wire together, fire together. So we kind of or fire together, wire together. So we cause this rewiring of the brain. Or if we want to look at it on the spiritual level, is we are um, causing our soul to change, that we are making small changes in our soul, and those allow us to behave differently in the future. Both explanations have the same end result, is once we begin to act in a small way, it becomes easier to take that next small step and then another small step after that. And then the third part is to journal. And so at the end of the day, you say, okay, well, where was my soul trait of humility or whatever I'm working on? Where was it tested? What were my choice points and how did I respond? And sometimes maybe I responded well, and sometimes, especially if I'm out of balance, I may not have responded well. It's a time to be gentle with ourselves and non-judgmentally kind of record what happened. Now, the journaling is the hardest part. Some people don't journal at all. Some people give it a try and then can't live without it. So and some people try it and it's like, oh, this just is not for me. My journaling practice comes and goes, but when I journal, I certainly make the most progress. Those have the biggest impact on me. So let me pause here and see if there are any questions about the basics of a Mussar practice.
Rabbi Craig,
Yes, yes, Harry.
when you were reading all that and in this discussion we had before, I just thought of a simple thought about what Mussar is about.
Okay.
And that is, we all heard the saying, it's not what happens to you in life, it's your reaction to what happens to you in life is the big news, is the big thing.
Yeah,
What Mussar is training your reaction.
that's
It's
right.
giving you the choices that we all have and or being reminded of the choices that we all learned. And that reaction is what Mussar is about.
That's right. And that's well said, Harry. Thank you. Bonnie.
So picking up what Harry just said, I was at an Al-Anon meeting recently, and someone was talking about some of the phrases or the words that help us get through difficult situations. And one of them, which I really think applies right here in Musar, is very simple. You might be right. In the middle of an argument, that person in your mind is 99.9 wrong. But you know what? There's always that chance that you might be right. And for me, it makes me stop and think, you don't know everything. You know very little, Bonnie, but you don't know everything. And that's where I thought it fit right in with humility.
Yeah.
And the other phrase that I had forgotten about was say what you mean what you say, but don't say it meanly.
Great. I could have used that. You might be right.
It did
Phrase.
stop an argument I had with a grandchild who was sure that I was wrong.
Yeah, I wasn't quite an argument, but I was invited to someone's sukkah and went and sat in the sukkah. There were a bunch of people that I hadn't met there before. And someone just, was last Saturday, hostage had not been released yet. And this person decided to go on a tirade about they're all the same. It's never going to happen. They're going to do it to us again. And it was really quite, and there was like a lot of silence and nobody said anything. And then, this person left a few minutes later, which may or may not have been related to the silence. But I was left without anything to say. But I could have said, you might be right. And it's not saying they're right. They might be right. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't a legitimate point of view, but it was so vociferously kind of thrown out into everyone's just kind of having this relaxing, mild time in the sukkah and eating, little noshes and getting to know each other. And that was anyway, I think you get my point. Enid.
When I'm trying to learn, not trying, when I'm aiming at learning is not just to listen to the words that people are saying, or some of their obvious actions, but to try to listen to what they're really saying. And I think sometimes it's been my experience when people get very insistent on their point of view, what they're really saying is, please listen to me, take me in. Hanini, right? Here I am. The other person, here I am, I hear you. So when you say you might be right, I think what you're saying is, I hear you. You're not saying I have to agree with you. You don't have to kowtow to them. You don't have to sell your soul to them. but you're embracing them as another human being with their own personal point of view. And I was talking to a friend of mine who has a 180-degree opposite political point of view from me, and I had gone to this reconciliation workshop, and I told her what I was going to do because I was practicing it, and she said, fine. And at the end of the whole discussion, we wanted the same thing. It was a fascinating lesson because we wanted the same thing. The only difference was we had a different way to go about it. And this wanting to be right or I'm wrong and you're right, I do it too all the time. So
Mm, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And that was well said. And I love that phrase, just seeing them as another human being. That's part of the key. That's part of we could add that as to our list of things that a Mussar practice can help you do is just see the humanity in other people. Okay, we're going to head to our breakout rooms in a couple of minutes. Um, so we'll have plenty to roll over into next week. I'm going to share with you something that I'm sure a number of you have seen before. It's our spectrum of humility. So you'll notice there's two things on this slide. One is the mantra, the no more than my space, not less than my place. And then I like these diagrams because, again, it's putting everything in extremes, where if we have too little humility, we might be arrogant. And if we have too much humility, we might be self-debasing. We're not taking up enough space. Like this person who made this exclamation in the sukkah I'm talking about, they were, really just sort of took all the space in the room. And maybe I didn't take enough space in sort of saying something or responding. Um, I am happy I did not get in an argument with this person, but there was also, it became an awkward moment for them. So, um, in a future situation, I might try to just take up a little bit more space to uh, hear their point of view without supporting it. So, rather than discuss this, I want to talk about um, in our breakout rooms, there's an opportunity to really talk about things. And it's all confidential. Reminder that we're just there to listen, we're not there to fix or offer advice. So maybe if you feel comfortable, you can talk about what's your biggest barrier to being your best self and how might taking up more space or less space help you with that project. So I'm going the rooms are now open. We'll have 10-ish minutes or so.
Do you have questions that you're giving us or discussion points this time,
Yeah,
Rabbi?
that's what I was just putting up, talking about what's the biggest barrier to being your best self and how might taking up more or less space help you with that? Does that make sense? Or is that too vague?
No.
Okay.
Greg, I have to go.
Okay. Bye, Peter.
See you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for coming. All right. Catherine, are you going to join a breakout room? Sorry, I can't hear you. Ellen, are you going to join a breakout room?